The courtroom was in absolute silence. All eyes were fixed on her. Nia, who hadn't spoken a word since the night everything changed, sat there motionless in the witness stand. Not a single whisper, except for the faint sound of papers shuffling and chairs being adjusted. The tension in the air was thick, as if everyone was holding their breath at the same time. Nia slowly raised her hand. Not to answer, not to speak, but to signal something. Something no one else could see. Her gaze was fixed, distant, as though she wasn't really there. It was as if she were communicating with an invisible world. The judge, with a look of confusion, froze for a moment. "Session suspended," he ordered, and everyone in the room remained motionless, as if time had stopped. What happened? No one knew. There was no logical explanation, but everyone in the room felt that it was beyond anything they could comprehend. Something was happening to her. Something deep. Something they still didn't understand. Bellwood was a small, quiet town in the heart of Louisiana, a place where people waved from their porches and where life seemed to move slowly, with no rush to change. But inside the Brooks household, the silence was different. It wasn't warm or comforting. It was heavy, suffocating. The laughter that once filled the house had disappeared. The light seemed dimmer, and Nia, the daughter, was no longer the same child. She stopped talking, stopped smiling, stopped being who she was. Every night she would sit by the window, her legs curled up, eyes wide open, staring into the dark backyard, as if she were waiting for something. Or someone. Camille, her mother, tried to act normally, to keep up appearances. But every time she saw Nia standing there like that, with that vacant, distant look, something deep inside her tightened with a fear she couldn't explain. She had no doubt. Something was out there. Something was watching. It was a normal night when Camille came home late from work. The front door was ajar, the lock undone. She rushed inside, calling for Nia, but there was no answer. She followed the hallways until she found her, curled up in the closet. Trembling, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her eyes were empty, distant. Nia never spoke of what happened that night. She never said a word after that. She stopped talking, stopped smiling, stopped being a child. The police found nothing. No fingerprints, no forced entry, no sign that anyone had been there. Just a silent child and a mother who found herself losing everything. Camille tried everything. Child psychologists, therapy, medication, prayer. Nothing worked. But then she heard about a rehabilitation center, a place where traumatized children were paired with specially trained dogs. She hesitated, but something about the idea made sense. Maybe an animal could reach what words couldn't. That's when Rex entered their lives. A massive German shepherd, with a scar running along his side and eyes that seemed to see through everything. He was a retired K9, trained to protect, but now he was there to heal. When Nia saw him, she didn't flinch, didn't pull away. She just looked at him, and then, with a slow motion, she reached out her hand. When her fingers touched Rex's fur, something happened. Something like a faint light flickering back to life. That night, Rex curled up at the foot of her bed, and Nia, for the first time in weeks, slept peacefully. Camille cried silently, trying to believe that maybe, just maybe, something had changed. But hope is always cruel, and on the third day the peace was interrupted again. Rex growled. It was a low, deep growl that seemed to come from the very soul of the dog. His eyes were fixed on something on the wall. Camille ran to Nia. The girl was standing, motionless, once again staring into the dark backyard. Rex was beside her, tense, ready to attack. Camille followed their gaze. At the edge of the yard, a shadow moved, almost invisible under the moonlight. She turned on the house lights, but the shadow disappeared instantly, as if it had never existed. But the fear remained, and Camille knew it wasn't a trick of the mind. She called the police, but nothing is found. No footprints, no signs of forced entry, just the cold and unanswered questions. Only Detective Evans believed Camille. He installed motion cameras and, with a serious expression, said, "If this is what I think it is, it's not done with her." That night, Camille couldn't sleep. At 3:17 a.m., Rex growled again. But this time, he wasn't looking at the window. He was staring at the wall, tense, his fur raised. The room was locked. Camille entered slowly into the room. Nia was awake, sitting on the bed, pale, silent. She looked at her mother and, with a quiet voice, almost a whisper, murmured,